It's Andrew from Aussie Sapphire. We just want to run through today just some basic maintenance and operating tips on the Lortone 3A tumbler, one of our most popular tumblers, especially for beginners, and they're a very good little robust tumbler. So when we get the box, this is a new tumbler just straight out of the box. Take the tumbler out. You'll note there's some extra parts down underneath the false bottom. It includes with the 3A a spare drive belt and operating instructions. So it's got quite a good little booklet on basic operating instructions for rock tumbling, and just your Lortone instruction manual. But today we're just going to cover a few points that we find after selling thousands of these machines. There is a few questions that arise quite commonly. So today we're just going to cover a few of those to help you get a good long run out of your tumbler. The barrels are a heavy, long-lasting barrel. Quite a simple operation, but I'll run you through taking the lid off. Just take the washer off. Just use that to prise the lid off the barrel. Remove the outer lid and set that aside, and just stretch the rubber slightly and just lift the inner lid out, and that allows you access into the barrel. Whenever you're changing grits, make sure you wash the barrel out very well, and also make sure before you put the lid back in that this area inside here where the lid seals is wiped clean, and the same with the lid itself. So just reverse that procedure, push it down, the outer lid on. There is instructions underneath the cover, additional instructions, but so just push that down, nut on, and the nut goes on with with the machine slot furthest away from the barrel. The reason for this is when it sits on the tumbler, it actually sits onto this guide, so that is the way it sits onto the tumbler itself. Don't operate it round that way around, because it will bite in here and cause it to load up. So always sit the barrel on that way around. So I'll set that aside. Very simple. One shaft is driven, one shaft just freewheels. So one shaft is hooked to the motor and one just is pushed by the barrel. There's not much to go wrong with the tumblers. There's an adjustment here for the belt, so that's the most likely scenario, that if the barrel stops turning, it'll be an adjustment of the belt tension, which is quite simply done by just loosening those 3 acorn nuts. And just slide the motor away from the driven shaft. I'll actually take the top off this machine just to show you what the internals, if you do have to change a belt. So first thing, make sure it's unplugged completely from the power, and there's just some Phillips head screws. So just take that Phillips head screw out that end, the single one on that end. There's another Phillips head screw in here, so just remove that, and 2 Phillips head screw on the motor end. The belts last a long time, but you will have to change it at some stage, so it's handy to know how to do it quickly and easily. So remove the cover. Now you'll note here's the motor. Here's the pulley that drives and also drives the fan. The pulley on the driven shaft, and the actual pulley belt itself. So if you have a belt that's completely worn out or has broken, it's quite simple to remove. Just spin it off there, and just take it off, and that's your belt. So yeah, you've got a spare one, comes with the machine. So just reverse that to put it back on. Quite simple. And you can see the acorn nuts have got a slotted area for the motor, and that's all you're doing by adjusting the motor across in that direction just to tighten the belt slightly. The belts don't run very tight. They're designed not to run tight. They pick up a lot of their drive from the rubberised product that they are, so that tension is around about right. So you don't have to have it fully tight all the time, but eventually your belt will wear out or break, so it's good to know how to change that. While we're in here, very little maintenance is required. When you read the instruction book before you start, it will note that you have to lightly oil the bearings. Use a very light oil, Singer sewing machine oil, or a product like WD-40 or any of the other generic types. Don't use too much, just one drop before you start operation when you first get the machine. Just a drop there, drop there. So that will do one full month of tumbling. Do not overdo the oiling and wipe any excess oil off the shaft because you don't want that oil getting onto the actual barrel itself. But just do that on a monthly basis. If you're using a spray can, make a nozzle on it and just do the same thing, just a very light little spray. It only has to be equal to one drop of oil. The bearings are very long lasting. Occasionally we've had machines come back that people have used a heavy oil in, and it tends to gum up the shaft. I'll show you how to remove the shaft and clean the bearings if you need to. So just simply slot that up and those bearings will slip out. So if you note in the end there, the bearing fits in and it slots down into there, and it's quite a simple process. So if you've had a machine that's got gummed up over the time with thick oil, just remove the bearings and give them a good clean. Wipe everything down, remove any rust off the shaft, and just re-oil and reassemble. If you do, the bearings last usually for years, but if you do need to replace the bearings, we carry replacement bearings, so it's quite a simple process. Just insert there and do the same that end. To do the bearings on this end, you will have to loosen the pulley. So just an Allen key into there, loosen the pulley and remove that pulley off. The pulley should never come loose, but if they do, again, simple, just an Allen key. You'll find it's an imperial size. Just loosen, and when you refit, just make sure the pulleys are aligned. So just reverse the process. So again, just one screw in this end, one screw in the centre, and two screws on this end. Do the machine back up, and you're fully operational. Again, the motors last a long time, but if you do need to change them, you should probably get a licensed electrician to do so. The 3 acorn nuts that hold the motor in, and 2 wires go into a terminal block and change the pulley over. So again, we stock all these types of items. Use the machine in a well ventilated area. The motors do run hot, too hot to touch after some period, which is quite normal, and usually motors last for years, but make sure you don't use them in a confined space. Thank you. I think that's all we can touch on at this stage.